Okay. So in your Spring Boot application, how do you manage the code coverage? So what steps do you follow? And what is code coverage?
Yeah, so whenever we write the test cases, right?
Mhm.
So we see that how much the portion of the code is covered under that.
Mhm.
So code coverage is nothing but it shows the percentage of the code which is covered using the test case we have written. So basically, it reduces the chances of having bugs in the application by covering the maximum code. So in my current organization, we follow minimum 90% of the code coverage.
Mhm.
So in all the code check-ins we do, so before that we make sure that the 90% of the code is covered.
Mhm.
So for that we use Eclema. So that is the STS tool which we can integrate with the STS, and it basically whatever the code is covered, so that will come into green, and the portion is not covered will be in the red, and it will be yellow if it is partially covered. So under the hood it uses Jacoco. This is how we follow the code coverage in our Spring Boot application.
Okay. 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 So how do you perform testing in your Spring Boot application?
Yeah, so the testing can be of many types. It can
Mhm.
be either unit testing, it can be integration testing, end-to-end testing, or it can be performance testing. So whenever we do the unit testing, in that case, we test the methods and classes like individually. We have three layers in our Spring Boot application: our controller, service, and repository layer. So we write the separate test cases for these three.
Mhm.
And suppose we are testing the controller, and that is calling the service from there, right? So we can mock that service. So since we also do the unit testing for that service class as well, so wherever it is calling another service or any um, API call or any other calls are happening, so those calls we can mock it and we can write the standard return of it, and that return we can assume that okay, that uh, actual call is being made and that is the response. Based on that response we can further proceed. So that is how we do the unit testing. So in integration testing we test how different units or components they work together when we combine them. So when they interact with each other, then how they perform. So that is what we say integration testing. Then in case of end-to-end testing, we test the whole application as a component and we see if that does not have any issue. Then we also do performance testing. So we check whenever the huge load is there on the application, then how it performs. So that is also there. So yeah, this is how we do the testing.
Okay. So how you do performance testing?
So performance testing usually we don't do, and testers perform that testing. So they normally use JMeter and all. Yeah,
Mhm.
so they do like load testing and stress testing, all that they do. But I have not worked much on it.
Okay. So how do you perform logging in your application?
Yeah, logging we perform using SLF4J. So
Mhm.
that we use for logging, and we use Lombok. So using that, we don't have to write. So
Mhm.
that can remove the boilerplate code, and we can simply use annotation like at the rate of self4j, and then simply we can give log.debug or whatever we want. So we can simply give the logging related properties in application.properties or YAML file. So whatever the logging level is there, that we can define there, and also whatever the log output format will be there. So like with date, month, timings, whatever. So all those things we can mention in the properties or YAML file. So yeah, so that is how we do logging.
Okay, so how do you perform centralized logging in microservices?
Yeah, we use ELK stack for that, and for visualization we also use Kibana.
Okay, so what are the different logging levels are there?
Yeah, so we have debug info, warn, error, trace, fatal. So yeah,
Okay, okay. Okay, how do you maintain code quality in your project? So what are the steps you follow?
yeah, for code quality, uh, so we have test cases, right? So we see the coverage of that. So that is one way. Then we have sonar lint, sonar cube. So sonar lint, basically we can integrate with our IDE, and we can get the real time feedback on if any code is like not written properly, so any proper syntax we have not given and all, right? So those things we can find out. So sonar cube we can use for that. So it basically connects with the central sonar cube server, and based on the rules it validates the whatever the code is written, and it applies all the rules to the across the projects and across the all the team members. Also we review each other's code. Yeah, so these are the various
Okay, what are the design patterns you follow in microservices?
yeah, there are various design patterns. API gateway pattern is there, breaker pattern is there. So whenever we have any services not reachable or something like that, so we write the fallback method for that. Then we have a service discovery pattern is there. So this helps microservice dynamically discover each other. So they're using the registry. And then we have saga design pattern. So this manages distributed transactions across the microservices using the series of local transactions with compensating actions. So yeah, these are the design patterns are there.
Okay, how do you resolve version conflict in Maven in Spring Boot?
Yeah, we resolve version conflict using we have a command, I think,
Mhm.
Maven dependency and then tree. So that we use to visualize the entire dependency tree and identify where the conflict is. So basically this command shows us which dependencies are pulling in conflict version. That is one way. Also, if the dependency is brought in transitively, so maybe by any other dependency, then we can explicitly define the version of that dependency to resolve if we have to downgrade or upgrade that. So we can do that. So it will override the by default version. Apart from that, we can also use exclusions if we don't want any like interdependency. If any dependency is downloading other dependency and we don't want that, then we can use exclusions for that as well. So yeah, so these are the ways.
Okay, what is the difference between var and embedded containers?
Yeah, var basically contains the only application. It does not have the external server like Tomcat or JBoss, whatever we use. But embedded container will have the embedded server. So default will be Tomcat. So we don't have to explicitly download server and deploy the application over there. So this is the main difference between these two.
What is Spring Boot profiles?
Yeah, and Spring Boot profiles are a way to segregate parts of our application and make it available only in certain environments. Like we can have multiple environments, like we can have dev environment, we can have QA, we can have production, right? So sometimes we want certain settings to or certain configurations to work only with the specific environment. So profiles comes into picture and we use profiles for this purpose. So we can have separate properties or YAML files for different profiles, like maybe application uh, dev.properties, application test.properties, like that. And whatever the profiles will be set, if it is profile is dev, then application dev.properties will be picked up. There are some common properties are also there, so that can be picked from the application properties only, but those which are specific to the dev or test environment, so apart from those application properties, those application dev properties also will be picked if the profile is dev. To access the active profiles, I think we have one environment object, so that we can inject to the class wherever we want that. So with that environment dot get active profiles will give us the active profile. So yeah.
Okay, what are the advantages and disadvantages of Spring Boot?
Yeah, there are various advantages of Spring Boot. So it it has removed lots of configuration parts which we used to do in Spring. So um, so Spring Boot provides many auto configurations. So that allows basically the developers to focus only on to writing the logics. So and not focusing on the configuration part. And also it provides the embedded server, so we don't have to explicitly add go and add the servers, right? So we have Tomcat by default. And then in Spring we had lots of XML configurations and all that is not required anymore in Spring Boot, right? So all the boilerplate codes has been
But in
removed.
Spring also we can achieve without writing the XML, right? We don't have to write the XML.
Yeah, you are right. So basically from the Spring 3.0 onwards, the that framework introduced the capability to use Java-based configurations with add configurations and add data bean annotations. So user no need to use XML-based configuration anymore. But in Spring Boot, from the very beginning itself, there is nothing we have to do with the XMLs. So the configuration part is has been automated. So Spring Boot starter dependencies that package the commonly used libraries together. So we don't have to worry about the versions and compatibility of the different libraries with each other, because this comes in a bundle. So yeah, so these are the advantages are there.
Okay, and disadvantages?
Yeah, disadvantages are like whenever we have a very small application, so we should not go for the uh, Spring Boot and all. We can go with the simple monolithic application. So I mean for simple applications or microservices, so Spring Boot is kind of maybe unnecessary. So we can go for other lightweight frameworks in that case. And also sometimes the auto configuration behavior in Spring Boot, uh, we may face the conflicts. So we have to debug it and see like which version of which jar has been downloaded and all. So we have to resolve it, right? And also we have various microservices, right? So suppose um, whatever the uh, data we have in one of the microservice, so we have to make sure that all the microservices are in sync with each other. So sometimes any of the microservice is not working, or it is down, or its database is not getting updated. We have to make sure when it is up it should be in sync. So these are the challenges are also there. So yeah, these are the disadvantages are there.
Okay, okay.
What is the difference between REST controller and controller? Yeah, REST controller is nothing but controller with response body. So that is what we say REST controller. We use controller when we have the MVC architecture we are working with, and the response we want to return to JSP page or similar. So in that case we go for controller. But if we have RESTful web service, so in that case we use REST controller. So we don't have to explicitly write at rate of response body in this case. So whenever we have to return model and view object, so in that case we use add controller. But whenever it is RESTful web service, in that case we go for the at the rate of REST controller.
Okay, what is the difference between get mapping and request mapping?
Yeah, request mapping is like kind of more generic way of uh, getting the mapping. So we can have get, post, put, delete, all that with along with the request mapping. So we can use as per our, but get mapping is like more specialized to getting the data. So request mapping and method equal to get is similar to get mapping. So get mapping is more convenient to use whenever we have the get request. Also request mapping we can use for broader use cases, like we can specify the request parameters, headers, media types, and all that. Also this consumes and produces also we can give. So request mapping can be used for all, but we have been provided with get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping. So we have any specific kind of mapping we want to do, so we can go with these.
Okay, what are the common security vulnerabilities found in web applications?
uh, there are many of them. So one is the injection attack, then we have cross site scriptings, not using of HTTPS, using HTTP instead, and trying to use directly accessing the sensitive resources, maybe some files or database without any proper authentication or authorization. So to have these, we should do proper authentication and authorization. So whatever the inputs are coming from the users, we should have the proper validation of those inputs so that they cannot run the any kind of scripting and all to our application. And also we should not allow from the cross site. So we have the uh, configuration using which we can disable this cross site uh, access of the application. Also we should try avoiding insecure APIs that do not implement proper authentication, validation, or encryption. So that can also that can also be exploited by attackers to access or manipulate any sensitive data. So yeah, so these are the vulnerabilities we have.
How do you handle complex queries using Spring Data JPA?
So Spring Data JPA basically gives the it has whole lots of documentation in which we have let's say very complex query. So such as let's say some employee which has salary or some greater than some amount. So we have a inbuilt method. So find employees with salary greater than we can use for that. So we don't have to write the whole query, native query in this case, but wherever the JPQL, so this is basically called the JPQL, so which is provided by Spring Data JPA. So wherever this JPQL is not allowed, or sorry, JPQL is uh, we cannot write. Suppose we cannot write that, then in that case we can also go with the native queries. So that we can write using at the rate of query, and there we can give value, and there we can write the whole query, right? So that way we can write the native queries. We can also write the procedures if required, and that procedure we can directly call from our repository class. Apart from that, we can also use specifications. So for dynamic and complex queries, we can use a specification API provided by Spring Data JPA. So that allows us to build queries programmatically using criteria API. So we can use criteria builder for that, and then we can use that.
Okay, so suppose you have a huge data in your database and you have to show all this data to UI. So, what approach you follow? Can you explain?
Yeah, so whenever we have a huge data, in that case, if we have to show it to some UI, so we don't show all of them all together. So we can use pagination basically.
Mhm.
So at a time, let's say if the UI has the capability to show like 10 items, so we will share only 10 items to the UI. Whatever the request is passed from the UI, so that will have the information of the offset and limit. Like limit means like how many items it wants, and offset means from which, like suppose already we are on the third page, so maybe 31st to 40th item we would like to process and show to UI.
Mhm.
So limit will be 10 and offset will be like 31st. Okay, so we can show like 10 or 9 items, whatever it is. So for that we have a pageable object. So we prepare the pageable object from the whatever the request has come, and that response will basically can be used by UI to show the data.
Okay, okay. Okay, so what is multi-threading?
Multi-threading is a concept that allows multiple threads to run concurrently within a single process. So whenever we have multi-core processors, so we can leverage the processor's capability. So basically it utilizes a CPU resources efficiently by performing multiple operations simultaneously. So each thread can execute a part of the program independently. So that enables the parallel execution and improves the performance of application, especially on the multi-core processors.
Okay, so what are the different states of thread in Java?
Yeah, we have a new, runnable, blocked, waiting, and terminated. Yeah, so these are the states we have.
Okay, okay, so what are the various ways you can create multi-threading in Java?
Yeah, there are various ways. One is we can use extends keyword, and we can say with any class we can extend thread. So we can create new thread by extending the thread class, and we can override its run method. So that is one way. Then we can also create a thread by implementing the runnable interface, and we can pass an instance of the class to a thread object. So this is another way. Then we have the executor framework. So the executor framework provides a high level replacement for managing threads. So that allows us to create a thread pool and manage task execution more efficiently. So we have executor service for that. So yeah, so these are the ways we can create the thread.
Okay, what is Java memory model?
Yeah, the Java memory model defines how threads interact through memory, and how changes made by one thread become visible to another. So it specifies rules for reading and writing variables, handling threads synchronization, and providing guarantees on visibility, ordering, and atomicity.
Okay, what are the different types of exception in Java?
Yeah, we can categorize the exceptions in mostly three parts actually. One is checked, then unchecked, and then errors. So, checked exceptions are those which must be caught or declared in the method signature. Like we have IU exception, SQL exception, or file not found exception, right? So, whenever we write the code, so there itself, the compiler suggests to, uh, I mean, that will enforce us to handle it if we are not writing it. So we write in the exception block like IU exception, SQL exception, and then we can continue our code. Then coming to unchecked exception. So unchecked exception include runtime exception that do not need to be explicitly handled. So some exceptions like null pointer, array out of bound exception, then current concurrent modification exception. So all these comes under unchecked exception. So this is basically going to happen at runtime, so we cannot predict that in advance. And then we have errors. So the errors are the kind of, we can say, uh, which we cannot handle at all. So this is a this is an irrecoverable situation, so which cannot be handled. So and this, we can say, very serious problems, and application cannot catch it. So like out of memory error is there, stack overflow is there. Yeah, so these are the various types of exceptions are there.
Okay, can you explain the difference between string builder, and string buffer?
Yeah, string is immutable, and string builder and string buffer is mutable. So basically, string once created, its value cannot be changed in case of a string, but in a string builder, its values can be changed, so that is why it is mutable. And string builder is designed for single threaded use and is faster than string buffer. And string buffer is thread safe, it is synchronized, and it makes it suitable for multi-threading environments. So it is slower than a string builder. So yeah.
Okay, what is the purpose of transient keyword in Java?
Yeah, the transient keyword is used to include the that a field should not be serialized. When an object is serialized, transient fields are ignored. So whatever the, suppose we have a bean class, and in that bean class we have multiple properties, right? So out of those properties, if any of the properties have transient keyword, so that won't be serialized. So that field will be ignored, and their values are not included in the serialized representation.
Okay, what is the difference between hash map and concurrent hash map?
So hash map is not thread safe, and it can lead to inconsistent data in a multi-threaded environment. While concurrent hash map is designed for concurrent access and allows multiple threads to read and write simultaneously without locking the entire map. So the locking is done only on the particular bucket, not on the entire map. Then concurrent hash map performs better in a concurrent environment because it uses segment locking, so that allows concurrent writes. So concurrently writing is possible in this case. And then in hash map allows one null key and multiple null values, while concurrent hash map does not allow null keys or values.
Okay, what are memory leaks and how you can prevent them?
Yeah, memory leak in Java occurs when objects are no longer used but are still being referenced. So this prevents the garbage collector from reclaiming the memory. So the common causes includes static references or any long-lived objects or improperly managed collections, or we have not closed the connections. So those things. So we can prevent using weak references. So we can use weak hash map for objects that can be garbage collected when not in use. And we can avoid static references unless it is necessary. And also we can monitor memory uses with profiling tools like visual VM or JProfiler. So yeah.
Okay, what is the optional class in Java 8?
Yeah, the optional class in Java 8 has been introduced to handle null pointer exception. So earlier, before Java 8, we used to write the manually, we used to write the logic to handle null. So maybe in case of string, we used to use string utils dot is empty and all. And if or in case of other objects equal to null, so all that we used to write. But now from Java 8 onwards, we don't have to write that. So it helps us to prevent null pointer exception and represents a value that could be absent. So we can use it when a method might not return a value. So let's say we have find by id and it is not returning a value, may not return the value. So we can use optional in that case as a return type of that. And then to express the intention of possibly absent values also we can use it. And to chain method calls safely without null checks, we can use this. So yeah.
Okay, what is method referencing in Java 8?
Yeah, method reference in Java 8 are, we can say it is shorthand of lambda expression to call a method. So they provide a way to reference a method without invoking it, making the code cleaner and more readable. So we can use a double colon for that. So any class has any suppose a static method. So we can use double colon in front of that class and we can give the method name, and like this way we can fetch that. So yeah.
Okay, what is the difference between join and a subquery? In which scenario you will prefer to use join and in which scenario you will prefer to use subquery?
So they used to combine data from multiple tables. So join is used to combine row from two or more tables. So we can have inner join, then we have left join, right join, then full join. So these are the types of join we have. So we will have the relatable column between the tables, and based on those columns we can perform the join operation. Then coming to subquery. So subquery is a query nested within another query. So we, for example, we have some star from something, and then in we can write, and then we can have another query. So that query we says as a subquery. So it can return a single value, a list of values, or a complete table itself. So subquery can be used in select, from, or where, or having clauses. So normally we try not to use subqueries if it possible, because uh, they are normally less efficient than the joins. So mostly we try to use joins only wherever possible.
Okay, what is the difference between having and where clause in SQL?
Yeah, the having and where clause both used to filter records in SQL, but they are little bit different based on the scenarios. Like uh, where clause is used to filter records before any groupings are made, uh, but having clause is used to filter records after the aggregation. So it basically works on the aggregated data. Like it is used with group by to filter groups based on the aggregated function like sum, count, or average. So where clause basically used to filter records based on the specific conditions on columns. So we can write like select a star from employee where salary greater than some amount. And whenever we have to use the having clause, so that we can use with the group by, like, let's say select some id and then count of a star, and that from employee group by employee id having count of a star greater than 10. So in this case we can use the having clause. So yeah.
Okay, okay.